Okay, so today in Level Up Lua, I'm going to talk about the colon and self and some of the confusion it causes to programmers from other languages, coming from other languages who use different syntax, like the dot syntax. What it means in Lua, the colon, how that works, and then how we can just ignore it and avoid it in our tables that we create. We still have to, if someone else has made use of the colon, you still have to understand it, but you can write code that doesn't need it. So let's just start off with an empty file. So to explain what the thing is, what the problem is, so say I have a table, and this is going to represent our object, right? And the object is going to have a mass of 100. Yeah. Now, in Lua, what we can do is we can create a function that we attach to the thing, which is, just add mass. Let's say. Let's give it a weight n. And then we're going to say to that thing, and this is where it falls apart. So although what we would normally do is in another language we'd be able to access the self, but we can't. Here there is no self. So one way to do that is to do it the Lua way, which is to put a colon there. And then we have access to ourself because we used the colon. Then we can go into self and we can actually manipulate our mass like so. Then we need to use the thing, so let's do it. Now to call the function we use the colon again, and we add 10 to it, and let's prove that we've done it by printing it out. So the things to remember here are we wanted to access a self, so we had to use the colon, which kind of delivers this a self into there. And then if we want to pass the self through, so this thing to add mass is exactly the same as thing dot add, and you can see in my code complete, you actually give it the object or the table that you want to be the self. In this case it's the thing itself. So, and let's print that out again. So let's run this. So that's two different ways. Oh, we need to change it. 30. So that's two different ways of calling this add mass function, which has got an implicit self, and it's got an implicit self because it has the colon. And that's why it's confusing. It's like, do I use the colon or not? You don't know unless you look up the documentation or the implementation. You just don't know. And when coming from another language, you're used to using dot here, not a colon. So let's wipe that out. Oops. Let's, what did I call it? Colon. And as you can see, it prints 110 and 140, which is what we expected, because if we edit it again, I should increase the size. So first of all we added 10, printed out 110, then we added another 30, printed out 140. So that's the Lua idiom there. As I say, I don't like it because I come from decades of using different languages, and none of them use this. And the reason is that we've got this kind of self, and we've had to do this thing because basically the colon basically says pass the thing I'm on my left in as the first argument. And the colon, when you define a function, means there's an implicit first argument which you can access with the self variable name, which is a special variable that it kind of creates under the hood in this instance. So what we'd rather do, right, is not have colons. In that case, we have to actually pass in the self. That means that won't work. Well, actually, that probably will work. So that's thing number one. This is one way of dealing with it. Let's just see if that works. Again, yep, that's what we expected. But again, this is now messy because we've taken the self and made it explicit instead of implicit. So we're not really gaining anything apart from now we don't have to remember to use a colon, but now we have to remember to put the self in. So swings and roundabouts really. The colon call still works. This thing.addMass thing 30 still works, but again this is a mouthful and not what we really want to end up with. What we want to end up with is something that works like that. And you can do this. So if we start making this slightly more interesting, what I do is I define a function I call define methods, which takes what you're going to give as the self, right? And then what it does is it injects onto those that self. So we replace that thing with a self, and we can get rid of that. What this does is this is referring, this self is what you've passed in, so it's closing over this, it's accessing this self in this function. And that then all we have to do is once we've created our thing, so is just define the methods on it. So we do that. So we've defined methods. What we've done is we've added to the self, which is the thing we've passed in, this function addMass. And now it can reference self, so we get the ability to can call as expected. So we get the ability to have a thing that we can just addMass to in a completely normal way that we'd expect to be able to access that function in this thing. And that's because we've called this define methods method. So here we go, and as you can see we've got 130. So that is that, right? So again, this is sort of what I do to create a thing. So say I wanted a mod, like a class, essentially. It's not a class because we don't have classes, but something that's a bit like a class would be with a capital T, thing with a capital T. And what I like to do is then I will add a new to that table. That takes some arguments, but we haven't got any arguments. And that is going to return then I'm going to create one. Then this is my kind of constructor. So I'm going to make an instance, and that's going to be the thing with the mass. That's an end. So, and then I'm going to have to rearrange this. So, let's move that up there. We define our methods. Then we're going to define, so then we take that. Then we're going to define the methods not on the thing now, but on this instance we've just created. And then we return the instance. And that's how you make a new thing now. So first of all we have to create a thing. So local thing equals thing. I really shouldn't have used thing because I'm terrible. I always say thing. So we're going to make a new thing. Then we're going to add mass. Then we're going to print the mass out. So we've basically encapsulated our defining methods, and we add them to the instance which contains our data, and then we return the instance. Then we can make a new thing with this thing.new. And again, let's run it. 130 is what we expect. So that's sort of how I address it. And then you can add as many different methods as you like in this define methods. You just do function. You remember to put the self in, then the method name. And that's how you add a. Get to that one. And that's how you add a new method, just like that. And then you can refer back to self as many times as you like. So let's just print, okay. So now we've got a method called print mass. So I could actually just call that instead. Again 130. So this is how I'm going to start to define things. Then the other thing we can do to make this even nicer is if we use the set meta table, we can set. Now if we set it on this thing, then what we're going to do is, if we add a meta table by setting it, do this. One of the methods you can set in a meta table is the call method, and that takes the table, which will in this case be thing. Don't have to care about it, and whatever arguments. And it's not function; it's function. And here we just return the things new, and then we just give it the the arguments. That means, and we don't really need the t, and because this new doesn't take any arguments, we could just make it take mass, and give it mass here, and then we're just passing through the arguments there. So we can change it here. You can just either pass through with the triple dots, or you can start naming them here. This is really a convenience access to this function here, and the reason we do that is because now we might want a default, right? So maybe we implement a default here. So if this is nil, here we get default of 100, and we can let's just print the mass out. So now with this set meta table, setting the underscore call function, basically this then calls the new and that returns a null, but this gives you your constructor. So what call means is if I treat this thing table as if it was a function by trying to call it using the open parenthesis, close parenthesis, then what it does is it actually calls this function here, which in turn calls the thing new. Now I could put all this code in here, but I tend to do it this way. I don't know why. So now, and you can see the first print mass prints 100, and it prints 130. So this is how this part here is now really what I would do after this is return the module, return a thing, and then you inquire if you required this file, if this was just all the file you had, then you've now got a constructor that you can construct things, you can call functions in the normal dot syntax without having to pass through self. Self is implied, but it's actually part of the closure. So self is closed by this define methods, and all you have to do is remember to put all your methods in this define methods function. Define, once you've created your data object or instance as I call it, inject the methods onto the instance and return the instance, and then you can just access those functions as if you were in a more normal calling syntax. No dots, no colons, ever needed, ever again, and this works fine. And it's kind of reasonably neat way of doing things. The other thing is, like, once you've got your kind of new constructor, then if you just set the meta table with the call method, this is setting the meta table for thing. You might also want instances to have their own meta table methods. I can go into that in another video, but that's kind of it for now. So I hope that was useful, and hopefully I'll do another one soon. Okay, bye.